everybody. Welcome to another Sunday morning conversation brought to you by Boxing Life. So today I talk with Alex Willis. He is a former pro triathlete who is going to share some of his experiences about going into the Olympic Training Center leading up to Rio. Alex and I have a lot in common. We, other than being triathletes, we both have architecture degrees. So he's trying to pursue that now in his post-triathlon life, along with coaching. So I really hope you enjoy the conversation. I did. So if you'd like, subscribe, click the bell, and give it a thumbs up. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hey, Alex. How's it going?
Good. Sorry I'm a little late. Just was helping my wife with a poopy diaper, so that's parenthood.
Oh, dude, you're a busy guy, man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
How do you like living in Arkansas, man?
Well, I'm in Leadville, Colorado.
Oh, I saw on your website it said Southwest, was it Southwest Arkansas?
Was that the AW-2?
Yeah, that's the one on your Instagram.
That's very interesting that it pegged my location is there. So I'm going to look at that right now.
Well,
You're probably like, where are you getting all these snow pictures, dude?
you know what? It did make sense, right? So I saw you grew up in Leadville. You went to New Mexico for college. And then it said Southwest Arkansas, but you're still like coaching Nordic skiing. I'm like, is there like, I know that like the Ozarks are somewhere near there. Is there snow in there?
I'm looking at that right now. Like, oh my gosh. But anyway, keep going. Yeah, so I'm still in Leadville. My wife and I moved back from New Mexico. At the end of 2017, and kind of just tried to catch up a little bit. We spent 4 or 5 years, chasing the professional triathlon sort of dream, and just realized, oh my gosh, like, we weren't like winning races and getting a ton of prize money.
Now you say we, is she doing it as well, or is it?
Yeah, no, that's how we met. That's how we met. She and I met racing triathlons professionally. We were working with the same coach at that time, and yeah, that's exactly what happened. We kind of met through our coach, and Sierra, my wife, left Utah and moved to Albuquerque, and we were friends and slowly just, got, into a really strong, respectful relationship, and, ended up, I proposed in 2016, got married in 2017, and then we boogied on back up to Colorado.
Yeah, because Leadville it's not like Boulder. It's actually tucked into the mountains.
Oh yeah, so Leadville is the highest incorporated city in the United States. Like my house sits at 10,200 feet. So Boulder and Denver is kind of what you refer to as the Front Range. So it's kind of like where those Kansas plains meet the mountains. So Boulder is like right against the Rockies there, and it's just like right at the end of the canyons where roads go up into the mountains deeper. There's still phenomenal training and everything in Boulder, but then Leadville's about 2.5 hours like southwest from Boulder, and we're right in the heart of the highest peaks in the Rocky Mountains.
Okay, so I think the most interesting part about you is that you're not a registered architect yet, but you have an architecture degree, right?
Yes. So that's exactly what's going on, and it is interesting right now. I'm happy you're asking about this because that's what's emerged over the last year.
Yeah, I am not registered yet. So mine's a complicated story of why I haven't got registered. We're not going to get into it because it's about you, but I've been in your shoes somewhat, and I learned there were some athletes that were in the architecture program, and I learned from a couple of them. They said they will not give you a scholarship if you do architecture. They wanted you to switch your major at Kent State. So.
Right. I believe it. I walked on to University of New Mexico, and I ended up earning a small scholarship by the time I ended, and that's kind of a long story as well. I just never felt like I got like the scholarship I probably deserved, even though I was scoring at conference starting my junior year, and I didn't know how to advocate for myself as an athlete then. I'm still kind of an awkward guy, and I definitely realized I'm sometimes a bit of a hipster, so I didn't quite fully jive with, I think the track and field crowd, and I was doing a really hard degree. And I just expected, because I left a town, that has an amazing athletic history as far as like high school. athletic performances. Like there were a lot of athletes and really strong people in Leadville, back from the 1950s through, the 1990s. But once one of the big mines finally closed, Leadville sort of um, went into a huge recession. I mean, the mine laid off 3,000 plus people in a community of like 8,000 or 5,000. So it's like half the town suddenly didn't have a job, and so that really sent the school district and the town into a pretty bad recession. And so the quality of teachers and just everything else was kind of sucked dry. So I didn't, have the greatest, coaching even in high school to some regards. There were some standout teachers and coaches around for sure. But then I thought, oh my gosh, if I walk onto this team, like I'm going to be looked after and taken care of. And, it's just crazy to learn that like I just didn't know how to advocate or demand kind of what I deserve. If any other D1 university, you had an athlete scoring a conference, like they would have been on something more than what I was earning. But that's just how it rolls. And I look back and just see it that my parents or my mom, they didn't know how to advocate for that. I didn't know how to advocate for that. And, not anything against our coach, but he was looking to build a top program, and he was like, I was running on a team, I think at one point there were 3 guys running sub 4 miles while I was running on the team, so the quality and the depth of the team was very deep, and I know where our coach's focus was, but I just always wonder.
Now, being that I went through architecture school too, and I'm an athlete, not quite of your caliber, but I know what it's like to function when you're sleep deprived. To extreme, I can't remember how many nights that I was awake during architecture school, and some of them even like 2, 3, 4, or more. But I mean, I know that I could push
Mhm.
myself through that and function mentally. That to build models, you don't really need to be all there. Just don't cut yourself with X-Acto blades. But
Yeah, no, I always try to go home before like the midnight X-Acto injury. Like I always tried to like wrap things up before blood was drawn. Like the night just
yeah,
goes badly after that.
I caught myself a few times, and it was just lock tight and kicker and just keep going.
Yep.
But I can function mentally and get myself through a normal day when I haven't slept the night before or multiple nights. But I can't train when I'm sleep deprived. I don't know how that's like for you, or like how that was being a Division 1 athlete, because I know there's no way that you got through architecture school getting to sleep every night.
I never pulled an all-nighter, believe it or not.
Holy
There
shit,
was
no way.
there was one night my senior year, I'm like, I'm gonna keep this trend up. I got 2 hours of sleep before my final. So that's the closest I ever came to an all-nighter. But I lived 800 meters from the university. My house I lived in was literally in between the track and in between school. So it's like not like I had a commute or I lived across town or anything like that. And like I wasn't a partier either. Like, the architecture kids, would be between, projects at school and they'd kind of be partying a little bit. Like, too bad. I have to fly to California for a track meet tomorrow. Like, can't. And then meanwhile, when the season ended, with, the distance crew, because I did 3 seasons, I did 3 sports. I did cross country running, indoor track, outdoor track. So I was racing. I was gone like in the fall for cross country running. I think I was gone probably 6 or 8 weekends in a semester, and I think in the spring I was gone like 8 to 10 weekends in the spring. And that's all I did, and I loved it. It's not like I was miserable. It was just my choice to do that, and I kept it together. And I think, I don't know, what year did you graduate? When did you wrap up school?
I finished my Master of Architecture in 2013.
Got it. Yeah, so yeah, we had about the same period, but I could take a lot on the road as far as like the physical model building and stuff I'd get done at school, but then I would still be on the airplane or in the hotel room, like working in Revit or whatever, doing Photoshop or doing 3D model building, finishing up the project there. So that's just how I rolled.
Okay. Now, how do I say it? Do you think that it was more of a, if you had to do it all over again, would you do both at the same time, or would you pick something different?
I would do both at the same time for sure. Um, Really, I think obviously hindsight's 2020 all the time. Um, I kind of wish I'd picked to go run for university like the University of Arizona or something where I would have finished a 5-year undergrad program and been accredited, and that's just something, again, and like, no, this isn't a negative comment on my mom. I was raised by a single mother and a really close family friend who was essentially my father. So I had a really, really strong support network, even though they weren't my biological parents. My mom was, but our close family friend was named Bill, and he just was more than I think even most kids get with a true father. So I had plenty of support and love and guidance, but I don't think they quite knew the ramifications of picking an unaccredited university versus an accredited university. I was looking at schools with two objectives. I wanted to run and I wanted to do architecture. And that's the only thing I think I would have changed. Like if I got into University of Arizona, like I would have ran D1 and then hopefully then be able to graduate and be able to sit for my license would have been my goal,
Yeah, I mean, both my schools were accredited, and I mean, I went to Kent State for undergrad, and then I went to Georgia Tech for my master's. But I had another degree before I went in, so I went to Kent State accelerated in 2 years, which was cool.
Got it.
But I could have, and all I would have had to do was one more year at my master's at Kent State versus 2 at Georgia Tech. But I wanted to get the hell out of Dodge.
I hear that too. Like,
And Georgia Tech's in the middle of Atlanta, so I'm like, I'm going. Because had I not left Kent State, I don't know if I would have really ever. It was the push I needed to get out of Ohio, because I would have ended up in like Cleveland or Pittsburgh. It is incredibly hard to get a job in a city that you don't live in, you know?
Mhm.
Because even though my uncle lives here, I would have been living out of his basement for like probably 2 3 months. And when I came out of undergrad, it was, or even if I a year later, if I did the master's there, I would have been, it's like one of the worst times to come out as an architecture student, because it was just at the tail end of coming out of a recession, and they just, no construction's happening, so they weren't hiring. That's part of the reason why when I was in school, I could never get an internship, because during the times I got fucked.
Right.
We all
Same
did.
story. Same story. That's why I'm picking this up 8, 9, 10 years later. I think, I don't know if you picked this up, but I was part of USA Triathlon's recruitment program for 2016 Rio Olympics. So I actually went to the Olympic Training Center and lived there as a resident for 2013. And I graduated and I had a small internship with a little firm, and it was like 10 or 12 hours a week. He was a great guy. I still love this guy, Don Dudley, out of New Mexico. And but I was working with guys who were in their 40s and 50s with families who had, in the architecture industry, that got kicked out of their jobs and then were suddenly, just scrambling for these entry-level positions. And I'm just like, don't want to take a job away from like someone who has a family, right? That's probably like the way too like empathetic, altruistic, like, soul in me. But I was working in a coffee shop, and I'm like, I cannot just be in the service industry. And so when that's how I got into triathlon. I was still like running. I was wondering if I could make it to USA Track and Field Championships in the steeplechase. I just missed nationals my senior year in the steeplechase by a couple seconds, and I still had like a bone to pick. And then I stumbled into triathlon. Like I swam growing up, and like it's just Leadville. You just grow up mountain tough and everything. So I could swim, bike, and run. And I just within 4 months got wrapped up with the Olympic Training Center. I started triathlons in 2012. I started summer 2012, and I ended up moving to the Olympic Training Center January 2013. That's how fast I got recruited.
Yeah, you did well.
And that was a choice. It's like, oh my gosh, like there are no jobs for me. Like I'll get this opportunity once. I'm going to go to the Olympic Training Center. So that's kind of where I went, and that's how I went down like the long path of triathlon for 5 years or so, and how I met my wife. So it was the right decision to make for sure. And then I ended up working at sort of like a local REI type store in Albuquerque called Sports Systems, and I worked my way up to being a buyer and sales manager, only because like the recession then sort of really hit triathlon, and I was doing short course. Like I wasn't doing Ironmans and half Ironmans. I was still trying to do like the non-draft legal and draft legal Olympic scene. And so I was keeping my training and all my racing to like that shorter, punchier distance. And the year I went pro, there were like 50 races. I don't know if you were doing triathlon in 2012 or
2014 is
13.
when I got into it.
So you remember some of the 5150 series,
Yeah.
RAV4.
IV.
Hy-Vee, right? All
Yeah.
that Lifetime, like all of those races with, you know, $50,000, $20,000 prize purses. And I'm like, you know, this could work out for a little while, you know, and then 14 and 15, like nothing. It was just like St. Anthony's was left, both like St. Anthony's, the Des Moines Triathlon, New York City Triathlon, like, and one or two Tri Rocks were offering money. Like I did Tri Rock Philly,
And not only
you
that, but
know.
sponsors kind of flew the coop too. Like K Swiss
Oh
was
yeah,
gone.
yeah, done for sure. So anyway, that yeah. So yeah, if you have any more questions, and I'm kind of going on a rail here pretty quickly, so
No, that's all right,
I'll
man.
slow it down. I'll slow it down if you have a more specific question.
Oh, no, no. I just wanted to give people a background about what it's like to be, in an architecture and or architecture major and an athlete, because it's not an easy thing. And I am surprised that you actually slept every night. I don't know anybody who did that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like there. I always joked it's like there was like that 11 or 12 o'clock hour where you make a mistake. You didn't save your SketchUp model and you lose an hour of work. You didn't pull that ruler right, you cut yourself. And if you can just tell yourself to go home before then, you actually save time.
Yeah, I mean, I would do architecture school differently had I gone through it again, but I mean, it was survival, you know.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly how it felt.
And
Um,
it's a shame that all that hard work doesn't actually translate into a salary you think you deserve either.
yes, that's something that I've encountered recently. So I actually graduated, like our architecture program is pretty good. You know, we had some pretty stellar architects come out of that institution. Antoine Predock being like I think the most known. And I kind of really graduated feeling like I wasn't good enough for my degree, even though I graduated up in the top of my class, even though like I was a good performer, even though I graduated with honors. Like I still had this feeling that I wasn't good enough because I think, and this will be a question for you too, if you felt the same way. I kind of graduated feeling like, well, I'm not going to be like a Tadeo Ando. Like, am I worth anything? And unbeknownst to me, that there's just a demand for all sorts of levels of skill and talent in the world of architectural design. You don't have to be doing capital A architecture. You can be doing lowercase a architecture, and that's okay. And it took me a while to kind of get over that, you know, as the recession kind of finished up and I was working as a buyer and sales manager. I actually helped that company start a tech startup as well. Um, they were doing a smart retail technology, and I was moving back to Colorado, and the owner of the sporting goods store said, well, I want you to do this next job for me remote if you'd be willing to do that. I'm like, that sounds pretty good. So I helped them build up the startup, and I actually helped kind of build the UX UI department. And just moving through the startup and after working as a buyer and sales manager, it just really was almost like an honorary business degree. And I just saw that all you really need is to just start. You don't have to wait for things to be perfect. And when my son was born, you know, the startup, things were not going awesome at the startup. And so I left when my son was born and just decided to start my own businesses. The two things I can do that I can sell, like I can coach people and I can do architectural design and drafting. And I already had like a client or two in each, kind of bucket. And I'm just gonna kind of keep inventing, like lay down the road ahead of me as I'm driving on it, but it's working so far, for sure. And it took me, like I say, it took me a long time to kind of shake that, like I'm not good enough for this industry sort of feeling. But did you feel that leaving, school?
So, for anybody not listening, it's kind of like your Tadeo Ando is what we call a starchitect, and
Yeah.
I realized I was never going to be that, but I also didn't know what the real world was like. In that, I call school, looking back on it, I call happy fun time where rules don't exist, and
Right.
now, and then when you have your professional career that you may have done very successful in school, and won even design awards and competitions or anything, and then you find yourself, you're at the bottom rung, you're drafting, you're not really doing anything, and sometimes you never even work on one project that wins in a design award. And I think it really hit home because, like, i'm not gonna I'm not gonna mention the firm's name, but because I really like them, However, like what they did was low income housing, right? That is
Hmm.
like probably the least glamorous thing you can get outside of doing corn silos.
Right.
But yeah, and so when I realized, like, wow, I thought I would be doing all these different things with my career, and I'm doing low income housing, which is just cookie cutter stuff that you're rearranging the pieces in CAD and you're getting it out in like 6 weeks from new
Hmm.
project because that's where the money is how quick can you get them out? And it's like, well, that's what it was, and
Hmm.
it's like, you know, I realized that I am probably never going to win a design award again or do something notable. However, but the work life balance was good. It's like, oh, I'm in at like 8, I'm out at like 5, I'm getting my morning workouts in, my afternoon workouts.
Right.
What actually happened was I started bike commuting to work after Ironman Chattanooga in 2017, and then I got hit on the second time. And so that effectively it ended my career, but not that day. I kept trying to work like 4 different times, but my career as an architect is over as we know it. But it's like, all right, I knew what my career was. And then eventually, like because I couldn't draft or I was too slow, I got into consulting where I was working with a couple different companies that they sent you out to different cities and you would check out like apartment complexes and write up debt and equity reports for them,
Hmm.
which would probably be good for you. But the thing is, you're on the road and you've got a little kid now, so
Right.
it's not as easy. But I did that, and it was just a very big demand on the hours that I was working, and then I realized that I just can't physically, well, mentally handle this anymore, just because I had a traumatic brain injury out of it.
Right.
But
I didn't research that a ton, but I knew you had a traumatic brain injury, and I didn't realize how much it impacted your career trajectory and ability to
yeah,
work.
so it made my processing speed slower for one of the many things it did. But because if your processing speed's slower, you can't work in a deadline driven profession because you're just not going to
Hmm.
make your deadlines. And there's only so many
Hmm.
hours in a day that you could work. What took people 6 hours might take me 9 or 10,
Hmm.
and they're going to realize, well, we could pay someone else to do this quicker than he can. And that's the problem that you have.
Hmm.
So that's where I was at. But I've kind of figured it out now, or at least a different trajectory to see where it takes me, kind of like how you're doing. But I mean, I could never, I had just finished all my IDP hours or whatever the hell they call it now. Like, I mean, I got all 3 years worth of the hours done. And then I find out like a year earlier that, oh, well, we actually eliminated a bunch of this stuff. Now it's like, oh, okay. So I didn't actually have to do this bullshit volunteer work.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But it was okay because all I did was coach to get the hours anyway.
Right.
they,
That's awesome.
my one professor told me, like, yeah, you can volunteer coaching. He's like, I volunteer kids soccer, so I coached master swimming for volunteer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah. So tell me more about your time as a triathlete, the Olympic Training Center, and are you still doing it, or did you just kind of retire, or like a soft retirement?
Yeah, maybe soft retirement's the right word. I think, I look back and here's kind of the progression of how things went. I was really attracted to triathlon. I love the multi-sport vibe. And, I kind of got this invite to the Olympic Training Center and kind of got wrapped up on this draft legal road, um, triathlon course really quickly. And I'm sure you know the difference between draft and non-draft legal triathlon.
Yeah, I've never done a draft legal one just because I don't know, I like
There's
longer
so
stuff better.
there's so few available even to
I think
non-pros.
I think the
There's a
only one
couple.
available to me that's anywhere remotely close to Atlanta is Claremont.
Yep. And I've done that one as a professional, for sure. And it was a great time. Like I loved training. I loved going fast. The year at the Olympic Training Center was awesome. I'd do it all over again, but it felt a little, this is kind of how I make an analogy for it. It was almost like graduate school sports for the D1 athlete. Like, how you kind of move on after undergrad to like a master's program, graduate degree in education. It was like the best of the best moving on out of um, collegiate sport into something higher level. I mean, we're moving into the Olympic Training Centers, like moving into dorms again. And I was like, oh, geez, didn't really put that together. This is what's going on. Um, and, USA Triathlon picked me because they were trying to feed or build people um, out of Division I running and swimming programs.
That's how they
They
did it with
wanted,
Gwen.
yes, exactly. So I was part of the exact same recruitment program as Gwen Jorgensen. I was like a summer or two behind her, like she's a year or two older than me or something like that. But I was in the exact same program as Gwen Jorgensen. And actually, another one of our really top performing um, Olympic distance draft legal triathletes, Katie Zafaris, was Katie Hershey back when we were at the Olympic Training Center together. So we were one of six for like that class of people. And we were the first group brought into the Olympic Training Center, 3 men, 3 women. And I think we were a bit of an experimental program. You know, they didn't have a coach hired for us, you know, for the first month. And, you know, they're still trying to figure things out. Um, you know, parts of it were a little chaotic, but overall it was an awesome experience. And what it came down to for me is I just wasn't a quick enough swimmer. And I just could not meteorically get better on a trajectory good enough. I could run and bike with the best of them, no problem. No problem. I actually did win prize money at a Continental Cup draft legal once because the swim was canceled. That was great. That was also Alan Webb's last race. He got in a really bad wreck in that race. He like crashed on the bike right next to me. And it was just kind of awful to kind of be around one of those running heroes, you know, that you look up to because he was just a little bit older and then like be in the race that, you know, he kind of got really injured in. So that was a little nuts. I don't know if you knew that Alan Webb did a quick little jump into triathlon or not, but he did.
No, I did not.
Yep. And then, yeah. And so I just couldn't get good enough of swimming, and that affected my confidence quite a bit. And I think, um, I think I just questioned probably my, um, does like if I deserve to be there or not, probably once that started happening. And like you get cut in draft legal triathlon if you get lapped by the lead bike pack. When you're on the bike, you're pulled automatically. You don't even get to the run. And that's what is super depressing about, you know, kind of not being a strong enough swimmer. Have you done any draft legal cycling yourself? Have you ever been on a road bike or drafted or
I
know how
have a
that
road
kind of
bike.
works?
I mean, yeah, I've drafted and been on a road bike, like on in a smash fest or just to
Right.
run around town. But I mean, I've never done a draft legal race, but I know how they work.
Totally. And so if you can imagine your swim performance injecting you into your bike pack. So here I am coming out of the water, you know, the back half or the back third of the pack, you missed the train. And there's no type of Herculean single effort that's going to catch you up to the first or second bike pack to be in contention to run your way to a win. You know, where in draft legal, like I could come out of the water behind and then everyone's independent on the bike. And then I would have a similar effort to everyone else. And then it would come down to the run. And then I would be able to chase people down on the run. But in draft legal, like if you have that pack going, just because you can hold a much higher average speed in a pack, because the front person's
You're
pulling, you know, you
you're
can
cutting
adjust
their
the average.
resistance.
Right, and so it's just a whole different style of bike racing. And if you didn't make a good pack out of the water, your race was kind of over. Whether or not you overall could have maybe been a better swim bike runner, if you couldn't make the bike pack, it was done. And I just could not bridge that. And it was really depressing, like on USA Triathlon's dime, being flown around the country for these races, Claremont, Sarasota, and like wherever else we did these races, and like, and then like not make it to finish the bike. I was like super like, what am I doing here? You know? Um, so that was just kind of the depression with some of that. And I ended up leaving the program at the end of the year, and that kind of a couple other guys and gals in that group did too. And this is not a negative comment on USA Triathlon, but development programs just are always a giant sieve. Like if you make it, you make it, but they're just hunting for the best. So it's not like, oh, Alex, you're a strong athlete. Man, you'll be there in 2 or 3 years. It's more like they need quicker and faster development, and there's
What have you
always
done
someone
for me
better and
lately?
faster.
Is the thing.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's just how the sport is. Like, and I would do it all over again. I'd go to the Olympic Training Center again. I'd do it all again. But that's just the reality of the kind of program I stepped into, and kind of realized that at the end. And then so I still kind of stuck with the short course triathlon stuff. I still tried to do a couple draft legal races a year or two after the Olympic Training Center. And actually 2015, I had a really good June. I won that, yeah, just because the swims were canceled in these two races. I did the Dallas Continental Cup. Swim was canceled for poor water quality, so it was run, bike run, and I was fifth there. And then later on that month, I raced Triathlete Philly, and the swim was canceled. Not that it really would have mattered. It was in the I can't remember which river that is, the Schuylkill River right near Philadelphia. So it's a downriver swim like Lifetime New York. So it's not like, you know, my gap on the swim would have been lessened, but I ended up fourth that race, you know, so I got prize money in both those races that year, but it's still not like enough to cover the traveling expenses or anything. Like I always hoped that like one year I just barely earned enough prize money to like pay off my expenses, which I never came anywhere close to. And that's just the reality of it. And I just was not into long course triathlon.
I was gonna say, you sound like you're made more for it, but if you don't like it, you don't like it. I mean,
right. Yeah, exactly. And
being
that's
on a bike for that long is, you know, like a long time.
totally. And so we moved back to Leadville, and there's just like no way you can train for road triathlon up here. Like you wouldn't even get to enjoy the outdoors. You get to your trainer, your treadmill, whatever. There's a pool here that would work, but you wouldn't. Why live in Leadville if you don't train outside? Like you could not do what you needed to do up here, you know. So I'm definitely transitioning over to off-road triathlon Xterra, which I think is a lot more my vibe. I grew up trail running. I picked steeplechase in college because I'm a trail runner, and I think, you know, I look back, I got wrapped up in USA Triathlon because I got invited and I was kind of picked out of this for this program, and I almost feel like I stuck with it to kind of see how good I could get, or at moments maybe to prove other people wrong. And really what it came down to is just like I wasn't that much of a road person for running or biking. And, you know, Xterra is a bit more my vibe, you know, and I completely respect and think Ironman and half Iron distances are amazing. That was more my wife's talent. She was a long course triathlete. And we even did, you know, the only half Iron I did was for a honeymoon in 2017 in Cozumel. It's a really, really poor performance. So if you look that up, you'll be like, you were a pro. But it was just too hot for this little alpine creature. But it was a really fun race. And we actually did a triathlon camp there a couple years before, which is when we kind of became friends. So we kind of picked the spot more for sentimental reasons than like, oh, this is the perfect race for Alex and Sierra.
Yeah, because I just had a friend race the Ironman in Cozumel. I was like, do you know how hard it is to get to this island with a bike? There were 3 of them that went to race it, and they got this like big deuce and a quarter military truck that they had to get everything in to get there. It's like, man, that sounds like, because you can't land directly on the island.
You can. I don't,
Oh.
you know, we took a Southwest flight straight to Cozumel.
Oh, yeah?
But it's not
okay.
easy. But I mean, who knows? I don't know what's going on this year. If they just did it this year, I don't know what the pandemic or whatever is.
Yeah, they just did it this year, so I don't know either.
But yeah, it was fairly easy to get to, but traveling with the bike's never easy. So easy being relative, I guess, for triathletes.
So how's the coaching going?
It's good. Again, I kind of got to this point where, my gosh, I've had enough experience in my life to share this. And there's definitely a lot of good I can bring to people. Mostly I look back at my mistakes and, you know, the revelations I've had and all the different types of coaches I've had in my background. And like, I think it's a valuable to help people kind of skip these steps or be more efficient with their time. And it's been really rewarding. You know, I had an athlete this past year who trained for his first 50-mile trail run. And he was a triathlete. He did half Ironman Lake Placid. And one of my big sort of, I think, passions or revelations with coaching is, especially if you're going to be a pure sport athlete like a runner, you don't necessarily have to do all your training as a runner, you know. For this guy who did his first 50, you know, we definitely kept track of his fitness because we could only accelerate his run mileage so quick. He grew up as a swimmer, so impact was a challenge for his body, and we were just kind of building his run mileage sort of as you know, cautiously but as quickly as we could without having an injury. But we could rely on his swimming and his cycling to sort of build his overall fitness to prepare for that race. And it was really cool. And he totally blew his goals out of the water. And I think, I can't remember if he was top 10 or 11th or something like this in this, small little trail run out here in Colorado. But he had an awesome performance, and he's looking at doing 3 trail marathons this spring and summer, and he'll be good. He'll be awesome. And he's just been one of these athletes that it's just been super rewarding to work with, because there's a lot of like injury prevention and strength training and so much that I can kind of spoon feed out to help prevent injury or pull back from like tight hamstrings, or if you get some sciatic pain that flares up your calf, like, that's what I enjoy sharing, making sure these athletes don't just think they're not worth it or train through pain when they shouldn't, or maybe they don't realize that rest is so huge to get better at anything. So that's been really great. And other than that, it's just been a lot of runners coming to me. And I think one of the best things I have been able to give a lot of my athletes is improvement on run form. It's sort of like, if you're going to go ride your bike and you have a flat tire, like, you can mash as hard as you want on a flat tire and you're only going to go so fast. But if you put that same energy into a bike with a properly inflated tire, that same amount of energy is going to get you farther. And that's how I see, run economy and run efficiency as well, is that you don't have to necessarily go train for a year to knock this much time off your run. You can improve your run form and your flexibility or your strength or whatever, or just even how you think about running, or how you do maybe a form check as you get tired and avoid over heel striking or whatever. And I think that's been really cool to see, especially in, this athlete I've been talking about. We did a lot of work on his run form and mitigated a lot of injury and pain. And it was really cool to see that. And so, it's been rewarding all over the place. I even partnered with the local pool here in Leadville. It's an amazing place to train. There isn't a really great industry outside tourism in town. Like, the average wage in town's or the average salary is like 28,000 a year or something. So it's a pretty poor community. And so there's not a lot to keep higher, and people with bigger incomes around, until recently, we had a big influx of people with the pandemic because they can work remote and work from wherever. But what was really cool is that I hosted a couple swim form clinics as well, albeit I'm not the fastest swimmer out there, but I've worked with some of the best swim technique coaches that USA has, trying to work on my poor little form back at the Olympic Training Center. So I know all the drills, I know all the different techniques we can do. And I've started doing a swim form clinic here in town, and it's going, people are signing up and they're excited to move from beginner to intermediate, or move from intermediate to advanced, from a more general population standpoint, for the same reason that run form clinic can improve just your joy of the sport. Same with the swim form. So it's been really great. And then I also coach, there's a local Nordic center here called Tennessee Pass Nordic Center, and that's just 10 miles outside of town. And they do some really awesome, it's a great concept business. They have sleep yurts and a dining yurt, and then they have a proper Nordic center as well. And I on occasion go out and teach some skate ski or classic skiing lessons for them. If they get overflowed, I kind of come in as kind of like an overflow, or if someone wants a more intermediate to advanced lesson, I go out and do that. And
what is a yurt?
A yurt. So it's kind of it's a fabric building. I think yurts.
Oh, all right. I'm getting what you're thinking now.
Yeah. So it's just a fabric kind of round building. And it's pretty popular out in the mountains in the West here, to have a yurt, that you can ski to or hike to in the summer. And so it's just definitely an experience, a destination experience. And it's cool. It's the sleep yurts are about 2 miles, a mile and a half away from the Nordic Center, and then the cookhouse, where you can actually make a reservation and have dinner, and you can snowshoe or ski or walk up to the yurts and just have a 4-star dining experience in this little tiny room where everything, all the water and all the cooking supplies and everything's kind of hiked up or brought up with a snowmobile or something. And so I teach lessons out there, and I also have had some community members hire me for skate and Nordic ski lessons as well. And I'm not sure if you knew this either, but I was recruited to ski in college as well. The University of Wyoming and Western State Colorado were actually trying to get me for Nordic skiing.
I don't even know you could ski in college. I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot, but obviously pretty much the states kind of
You
on the
need
northern.
mountains of snow to do it.
Right, but
Like
I
you
mean, there's
couldn't
some
do it in the
strong.
Appalachians.
You know what? They even had a really amazing Nordic skiing program at UNM, believe it or not. We're in the desert, almost to Mexico, and yeah, we had a woman while I was there at the University of New Mexico for running. She she was winning or getting second in nationals every year. You know, from New Mexico, the coach there would not hire, but he'd bring over a whole bunch of athletes from Scandinavia and Russia, and it was a completely foreign team, and it was mostly like these really top talented kids that were like sick of winter and like wanted to get a free education in America, but somewhere warm. So it was kind of a funny sort of program. But yeah, there is Division One Nordic and Nordic skiing as well, and
Oh,
alpine.
nice. I was water polo. They converted me from a swimmer to a water polo player.
Oh geez. I always thought like, man, I should pick up water polo. I'd be a lot better at open water swimming if I could play water polo.
You know
But
what? Games are 28 minutes long, 7 minute
that's a lot.
quarters. Yeah, but you're dying. Like there are very few people who can play the whole game, and you're just dying. And because mine wasn't a Division One sport, they brought me on as a club sport because East Coast,
Mhm.
it's a Division One sport on the West Coast, but East Coast, you're more or less just doing it for fun because you used to do it.
Right.
You're usually hung over when you're doing it too, so it's a nightmare. And like you're doing hair of the dog like in the bleachers because like I can't take this, I'm gonna puke, and it's like, well, this is probably a better thing. But it was hard, and it just wore me out. And you were there for usually 3 days playing a tournament multiple times in a day, and it
Oh
was
God.
just between that and you drink every night, and it's just it was hard. It was probably the hardest thing I ever did. Plus, you got to remember, it's a contact sport too.
Yeah,
So
no, it's like rugby in the water from what I kind
pretty
of gather.
much, yeah, yeah, it is. Well, Alex, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I hope to keep in touch on some level. And if you're ever out west, look me up for sure. I can show you all the secret fun things to do in Leadville.
Definitely. I mean, I would like to do Boulder 70.3 once. My brother moved out to Denver about a couple months ago, so I might be out there at some point. And who knows?
That's
Maybe I'll
awesome.
do Leadville. Was it the Leadville Ultra or whatever it is, the
The
50K?
100 mile. There's a 100 miler, the famous 100-mile run in town. It was one of the first 100-mile ultras established in like 82, I think was the first year they did it.
100
Um,
miles is a lot, and I'm a guy who did 140.6, but they're just running for that far. I don't know. I can't wrap my brain around that.
well, they also have a 50 in the race series and a trail marathon and a trail half marathon. So they definitely have that ramped so they kind of get you hooked and aim you for the 100.
Yeah.
But some
Okay.
fun stuff too. Oh, we have a visitor.
Yeah. Yeah. She wants her treats now because I didn't give them to her earlier. So, yep.
Well, thanks again for reaching out. I appreciate it. And yeah, just send me any of the links or anything when you post this, and I'll happily share. And happy to even talk again if there's topics you want to broach.
Sure. And best of luck with the kid. Try to get some sleep.
I know we yeah, exactly. Finally, he's sleeping through the night, so that's like brain damage for sure when you don't get to sleep through the night for a couple months on end.
Yeah, I'm familiar with how that feels. Thanks, man.
All right, take care. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys, for watching another Sunday morning conversation. If you liked what you saw, please do like and subscribe. And if you want to see more of them, click the little bell notification and it'll tell you whenever I post another one. Thanks again, guys.